the Genius Act passed and why it got through and why that was so much easier to pass than the market structure bill is because you get your head around it's a really easy story to tell. Like, why would the US not want to encourage this, right? Like, all it does is been as long as the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, we do not have to worry about our debt, no matter what Elon says, right? As soon as we lose that status, we're fucked. So, of course, you're going to project like dollars everywhere in the most efficient way possible. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. Market structure, yeah, it's just a totally different thing. And it's like, and I think there are more competing interests than just like Bitcoin doesn't care. And then there's these other things. I mean, obviously, within the other sort of communities, there's still like, I mean, there are people who are very much focused on building on Ethereum, Solana, like more trust minimized systems, and who value that and don't want to see a market structure bill that kind of impedes the ability to build decentralized systems and to have like autonomous systems that exist that aren't like stifled by like, having to file forms and, create some sort of personhood entity or something like that. And I mean, there's something to that, right? There's something to that critique. And I think it's a healthy tension. And you want that balance where you're preserving the ability to build these autonomous systems and to build like these trust minimized systems while at the same time making sure that retail and like users are protected when trust is involved, right? This is like, you can go all the way back to 2013, 2012, right? What I always said was like regulation follows trust. If you can build a fully trust minimized system, you don't need regulation. Whenever you have trust involved, you're going to need to be regulated, and you should be regulated, right? And that's the balance. What that tells me though is, right, and I think it's really clear, you cannot get market structure is not going to be, you just can't force it through just because Genius passed and the political like situation looks good for you, because those issues have not been resolved. This thing probably needs, honestly, like a couple of years of like, just like Genius, the actual stablecoin bill took, I don't know how many years, right? To actually get banged around, knocked around until it got into the shape it
Well, the
was when it
argument would be
passed.
that Bit 21, and there are earlier iterations of the market structure bill, right?
Bit
And it has
21, but it's been kicked around, but not nearly as long, right? And it seems like there is still, and it's much more complex. And the political side of it is much more complex because you're not projecting dollar hegemony, right? Like you're doing something different, right? And again, keep in mind, right? You're tweaking a fucked up system to make it a little bit better for crypto. You should be fixing the fucked up system, right? And fixing it for everyone, right? That's what we should be. In my opinion, I think it's fine. I'm like, if they want to pass a market structure bill, that's great. Like, I have no problem with it, especially if it's got good rules and it's thoughtful. And I think it eventually will get there. I just think it needs to be kicked around more first. On the other hand, if I had my druthers, I'd rather spend my time just fixing the fucked up securities law framework that exists entirely. And that does include accredited investors. It's like the 100-person cap on like private issuance. There's like, what kind of disclosure should we be having? What's a meaningful disclosure anymore, anyways? I mean, like, think about how much disclosure there is out there, and people are still buying like GameStop and shit like that. Like, I mean, is just, I mean, I'm glad we have disclosure, and certainly people can DYOR and caveat emptor and all of that, and I'm a believer in all of that. But like, it also tells me like maybe we're not disclosing the right things, right? Or maybe like the disclosure regime isn't really working the way it's supposed to. I think there's a lot to think through and fix, generally speaking, in over there. Um, yeah, and remember the worst of the SEC was under Jay Clayton, under Trump one, not under Gensler. Gensler was bad. Clayton was maybe not as vocal and visible, but he was arguably worse. And he also thought every token was a security, and he went after a ton of them, including the Ripple case, which Clayton filed and Gensler inherited. Now, Gensler had a heel turn because I think FTX blew up in his face, but like, you know, I think people like forget how bad it was before.